Welcome to the Rush to Fail podcast. I'm your host, BJ Gramillion, and today we have Kristen Cantrell with us. And Kristen was introduced to me by Will, who is the producer of the show. And I looked at her profile online, and within about 2 seconds was like, yep, this is for sure someone I would love to have on the show. So Kristen, thank you for joining us today. Kristen, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, some background, and give us an idea of, just
who I am,
your journey, your story. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. Love Will. We went to high school together, so it's really cool
Who
that we got
doesn't love Will?
I know.
Right.
So I'm glad he connected us, and it's actually funny. I had a guy introduce me when I was speaking last week at an event, and he said he looked at my Instagram and said he wanted to be a girl afterwards. So I was wondering what was going to come out of your mouth. But yeah, I'm technically a real estate agent, but I basically use real estate as the vehicle to build the business that I have, which is Connect and Cultivate. And really what it is it's a collaborative for entrepreneurs to come together. It's been in the real estate space, and it's kind of grown and morphed into just, small business owners, but really having a space where there's a calendar full of events where we get together, we learn, we grow, we do content shoots, we do all kinds of fun stuff. So that's my main business. I also have a podcast called Moms in Real Estate I've been doing for 7 years. I host a big women's conference twice a year called Flourish, and I do women's retreats called Girl Invest in Yourself. I do all kinds of stuff. I don't know.
Seriously.
Never want to be bored,
Do you just have more hours in the day than the rest of us? I don't know how you're fitting in all of those things you just listed off. That's pretty wild.
I don't know. I mean, I'm constantly in chaos, which is not a great thing. I don't advise that, but yeah. And I also have a 6 and 8 year old. I have 2 boys, which are keeping me very, very busy.
Wow.
And I do make sure to drop them off every day and pick them up. It's important to me. And then I have, me and my husband have been married 14 years, and he's a good time. We were actually just talking about him. He's a car flipper. So not for his job, but his passion is to flip classic cars. So, we're cool. Definitely busy.
Yeah, seriously. So what did your husband do for work?
He works out at Intel, and I always butcher his job. I don't know. He runs a team of quality control people.
Does he?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So definitely busy. You've got a lot going on. What got you into real estate? I'm always curious because I feel like no one ever goes to school to become a realtor or to go into real estate, right? So what got you into real estate?
For me, it was I was actually just had my first son, and I was working at GoDaddy, and I hated GoDaddy. Hated working there.
Did you really? How come?
It was, you know how they're voted the best place to work? It was literally the worst place to work. Like, you would go to the lunchroom, and everyone hated their life there. And I was just like, why am I here? I remember every Sunday night, I would just, have anxiety. Like, I don't want to go back there.
Oh, man.
And so
don't they serve cereal? I mean, they've got a great...
That's Infusionsoft.
Oh, that's Infusionsoft.
Yes.
Okay, I'm mixing the two.
No, GoDaddy has all the things. They have the beer, the ping pong table, the slides. But when you're in sales, if you're out of your desk for a certain amount of time, you don't get your commission. So it's like, hey, look at all this great stuff, but you can't touch it.
That's torture. That's horrible.
It is.
Okay.
So so I actually I had my son, and I took maternity leave, and I'm like, I'm not going back there. So I tried to figure out what was I going to do, and I was just exploring all these different options, and a real estate agent, Courtney Bea, actually came to me and said, I saw her at a bachelorette party actually, and she's like, I think you should interview with this couple, Chuck and Angela Fazio. They run an independent brokerage in Chandler, and you should interview for their recruiting position. And so I did, not really knowing what that meant, and but I just didn't want to go back to GoDaddy. So I was looking for a job, and my only thing that I told them was, I just want to make sure that you know that my family's first, and that was not the case at GoDaddy. So they hired me. Actually, the wife, Angela, she did not want to hire me. The husband's like, let's give her a chance. And
why?
That was, I had a top knot. Like, do you know what that is?
No.
So I had I
have no hair. So
I had my hair up in this crazy bun, and she's like, "Who does that at an interview?" And I was like, "Okay." So, anyways, I got hired, and we're best friends to this day. So
wow, she could look past the top knot.
She looked past it,
deal.
and then
cool.
so now that's how I got into real estate.
Wow. And that was a pretty cool connection because, and I'm just now learning more about the owners. You know, I know Revelation Real Estate because I've been in real estate for a while now. And when you mentioned EXP Realty, I know that when they switched over, that was a big deal. Like everyone kind of talked about it in the industry because, you know, they were a large brokerage. And so having them come over was a big deal. So having you know, perfect opportunity at a bachelorette party. And, you know, getting that introduction at the right time. Like that's pretty awesome. It's pretty cool if things work out.
Yeah, there's so much behind that story that is just so cool. It was a God thing for sure, meeting them.
I love that. That's so cool. Okay, so those are amazing mentors. I'm sure that you were learning a ton about real estate, you know, from them. And so you were a recruiter for how long?
I was their recruiter for 5 years. So I started out with them when they were West USA Realty Revelation, which was such a mouthful, such an ugly brand. I was like, I can't even tell you, like just the listing signs and stuff. I was like, how am I going to get behind this? But we started with 350 agents and grew to 906. While I was their recruiter, we built the building that they're currently still in and they own. It was the Forum. And when we were building it, it was like awesome because we had this big buzz to kind of put out there and create this, like, you know, this buzz around the company. And so that was actually like a huge recruiting tool for me.
Where is the Forum?
It's off of Gilbert and Germain.
Do they have like several, like, do they office to a bunch of different companies? Like,
yeah, so they, Chuck and Angela, yes.
This one thing, okay.
There was a gym in it at one point. Okay, so Chuck and Angela, one thing you have to know is they're always changing. Anything that isn't working, they take out and add something new. So literally within the last 6 months, they changed a co-work space, which is what the real estate office morphed into. Yeah. And now it's a bar, lounge, and club with an event center. So we were literally at lunch months ago and they were talking about it. The next week I came in and walls were knocked down. And like, I mean, it's not like a little thing. They literally are like, what are we going to do next? And then they do it. And everyone's just kind of along for the ride, which is really fun to be mentored by them because they're just like, they take so much like action and you know what I mean? Like it's very refreshing and fun to be around because I feel like so many times you're so scared to try something, but they're not at all. They're just like, we're going to do it and we're going to figure it out.
That's so cool. And it's funny because when you mentioned that, I remember going in there, I think I went to a chiropractor. Like, and I believe it was in the Forum, and it was like a beauty salon. There was a bunch of different offices in there, and I kind of got lost because there was like 28 small offices in this building or whatever. And of course my wheels are spinning and I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, what do they charge per room? How many people are officing out of here? Like, that is a cash cow. Like, I don't know who owns this or what. I didn't realize it was them that owned it. I didn't realize that it was a real estate brokerage that owned the Forum. That's so crazy. So now they've turned that into, and this was recent. This was like in the last,
the last year.
Oh my gosh. I need to go over there and check it out.
You should.
So are all those tenants gone now? Like,
there's still tenants there. Yeah.
Okay.
It's honestly like it's you still can office out of there. Like if I go there to work, I'll go sit at the bar. They have a coffee bar. It has a Class 6 liquor license. You can get sushi. So I'll go there and like work up at the bar, but there are offices around in the back. Yeah. But you don't see people having meetings as much as you used to.
Okay. I gotcha. Man, that is a wild idea. I love that. And it's something we actually thought about doing at one point, but never did. But yeah, that's so cool. Okay. So you were a recruiter with them for that time. And then like, what was it that I guess got you into doing these events and the podcasts and all these things? Like, how did that happen?
So when I first started recruiting, I was told to print out brokerage lists and call from the top to the bottom. And I hated it. I hated the appointments that came from it. Yeah. Randomly, I'd get somebody that I liked. And I mean, but the amount of like weird people that would show up from those appointments or the amount of rude people from cold calling, I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I wanted a job that I liked. I didn't like GoDaddy. I wanted to figure out what could I do and what was I here doing, right? So I realized that I was in charge of my own opportunities. And so if I wanted to create the right person in front of me when I'm recruiting, like then I need to create the rooms that the right people come into. Yeah. And so that's when I started like really diving into like putting on workshops and classes, and I did the podcast so that, I mean, at the time when I started Moms in Real Estate, my son was 1 and I had a newborn, and I was like, I want to be around other moms in the industry. We'll do a mastermind. We'll do this. You know, I had this awesome idea, I thought, and then all of a sudden it morphed into we're doing a talk show, and then we're doing a podcast. And so, yeah, that's kind of like I just started doing things that I enjoyed, and it started bringing the right people around. And that's how we grew the brokerage, and that's how we retained agents.
I love that. So you didn't necessarily have the environment that you loved going to work at. So you then created the environment that was enjoyable for you. And then not only that, found a way to monetize it and make it fun, cool, exciting. And I'm sure it brought in a lot more money, clients, all that stuff as well. So big lesson there, you know, if you're struggling, you know, in your current work environment, well, then change it up. Like, what are you doing? You know, like life's short, figure it out. So I love that. Very cool. So you mentioned is there a partner that you work with, or how does that work?
When did I say we? But no, yeah. I mean, I did
on the
for
podcast.
A long time.
On the podcast, you were mentioning,
yes. So Angela actually co-hosts it with me, Angela Fazio. Yeah, and we've just stuck with it. Like sometimes I do it alone.
Owner.
Yeah,
Angela.
the owner. Yeah.
Cool.
So sometimes we do it alone, or sometimes I do it alone because she's out of town all the time. Like she's going to Europe for a month the next couple weeks from now, so I'll keep doing it, but usually it's me and her. Like we just and we like that because we're both like we're best friends, and so we kind of just get to have like fun guests on and have a podcast together.
Awesome. Have you ever gone back to the hairstyle? What was it? The hair top?
The top knot. Yes, I'll do the top knot. I told her she needs to get with the times.
As she like
she's almost 50, so I joke with her all the time. I'm like, listen, you just don't know the top knot. It's cool.
I love it. Cool. So you guys have a podcast together that you do, and then that's every week. You guys,
every Thursday.
We were talking about this. Like you've gotten to the point now where I think you've batched. You said like 4 months.
Yeah, I do months? 2. I do 2 every other week.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. Very fun. Okay. So, what are some of the lessons that you've learned? Maybe the hard way. So I know that probably sounds like, oh yeah, it's easy, right? You just start, you know, these podcasts and these events and all that stuff, and it's going to be blissful and life is great. Were there some growing pains? And were there any like big, oh crap, that was not what I intended, or I shouldn't have done that. Man, I wish I had a do-over. Like, did you have any experiences like that?
I've had so many of those. I can't even tell you. So when you're doing events, I mean, I still deal with this. Anytime I start something new, it starts small. And I know that. I now know going into everything I do, it's going to start small. But if I'm consistent with it, it grows big. So with my events, like, you know, my first women's event, Flourish, we did it for free, and we basically asked everyone that was in the audience to come, pretty much is who showed up there, right? But I knew we were building something that was longer term. So then the next one we charged $97, and we probably had 50% sales, 50% we asked people to be there, and then the third one it just went up, 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 up. So it's just really cool because I think that when you could look at stuff as a failure when you're starting out, but I look at it as just a part of the process, you know?
See, and I think that's where so many people make the mistake is they get into something for the money, right? Like and if you're doing it for the money, you know it's going to fail. It'll fizzle out. It'll fade. And just like at GoDaddy, I'm sure you were like, oh yeah, that's a good job offer. I'll take it because maybe it's good benefits and all that kind of stuff. But then you quickly realize I'm miserable. This isn't what it's all about.
Yeah.
So you took the different approach of like, I'm going to go do something that I really enjoy doing. And in fact, I'm probably going to spend money on this and I'm going to lose money doing an event, you know, inviting these people to it just to see though what happens. And I'm sure that's how it was with the podcast as well.
Yeah.
But then obviously it morphed into, by the third event you said like at that point, that's when you were able to monetize it and actually make a business out of it.
Yes, absolutely.
That's so cool. So there's a lot obviously that we can learn, you know, from that. And so now, you know, where you're at, like what's next? Like, you know, what are you working on now? Are you happy with where things are at? Are you working on any new business ventures or ideas?
Always. Yeah. So, one thing that's kind of happened over the last 2 years, so I now don't work for Chuck and Angela. I quit working for them in December of 2020 after we moved to EXP and we closed down the brokerage. And I kind of was just studying the brokerage, trying to figure out, like, how do I fit in here? I was so used to selling Chuck and Angela and Revelation Real Estate. So when I was at EXP, I was like, am I selling EXP? Am I still selling Chuck and Angela because they're my upline? And I was just kind of like, tons of self-discovery, because when I went to EXP, I still am a super tiny fish in this huge sea, which is the perfect spot for me because there's just so many people doing way more big things than me. So I was just studying what the people I was inspired by were doing and like asking myself, well, what's my value proposition? And that was really hard for me. So I actually went and asked a bunch of people that I work with, like, what is my value to you? Like, why do you choose to work with me? And that really helped me identify how I was going to show up and what I was going to do with Connect and Cultivate. So I understood probably a year later where I was like, okay, I'm basically building a brokerage, leveraging EXP's platform, and I get to show up in my sweet spot. I don't ever want to mentor a new agent on writing a contract. I don't even know how to write a contract. Never want to do that. But my value comes with culture and community and the events and the classes and the people that I bring in. And so that's how I created Connect and Cultivate. And as that grew, I actually had 350 agents nationwide, and I actually just lost a group of 100. Super bummed about it, but they left, and still good friends with them. Really nice guy, but it was just for him the right move, in his opinion. And so anyways, I'm at 250 agents right now, nationwide, and I feel like it's really because I identified what I was doing there. I'm not selling EXP. I'm selling my brand, Connect and Cultivate. And as I started to go out with my brand in the world and talk about it, and I just talk to anybody that will listen, honestly. So then all of a sudden my events kind of started. I had people from other industries like, well, I want to go do that stuff. Why don't you do that for people like me? And I'm like, why don't I do this for people like you? It doesn't need to just be real estate agents. Really, the conversation's exactly the same. We're all just trying to figure out how are we getting around like-minded people and growing our businesses. So then I started to, I created basically a membership program, so that I have my Connect and Cultivate and I get paid through revenue share through EXP for anyone that's in my downline. And then anybody who's not in my downline, they can be a monthly member and I offer XYZ to them. And so I started growing that. And now this year, probably, I would say in the summertime is when I'm going to have time to really grow that and spend time on it. And I'd like it to grow into like a really big entrepreneur networking type business.
Cool. Yeah, there was a couple of things I picked up on that you did that I love. So the first thing you did was you were self-aware enough to go to people and ask them, what is it about me that is different? Like, what do you like? Like, what is it? Like, why were you willing to come on our team or whatever? And so I'm sure you got a lot of feedback there that was helpful so that you could hone in on, okay, now what is my superpower, right? Yes. I think a lot of people get asked that question. I've been asked that question even recently, and I was like, I stumbled on it because I was like, I don't really know, honestly, like
it's
what
hard.
That is. Yeah. But I think that you actually have a very clear idea of what that is for you. And it sounds like it's cultivating in relationships.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
That's so cool. And that's, you're branding around that. You know that's who you are. You obviously were a great recruiter. You have, experience that says, okay, this is my superpower. So I don't want to do anything else that's going to waste my time, suck my energy.
Yeah.
And I only want to be in that space where it's like fun, exciting, because there's a lot of other things I could be doing right now. I've got a family, I've got, a husband and all these things that I could be doing, but I actually want to be here because this gives me fulfillment and energy. And that's cool that you've like identified that and figured out, okay, like this is my sweet spot.
Yeah.
Like, this is where I want to be.
And it really is like, if you can't figure out what your value is, it's like sometimes people are like, how do you not see it? And you just don't. So you have to be able to ask people. And it really helps you create like what your company is, in my opinion. And without doing that, I don't know if I would have ever been able to create, Connect, and Cultivate. I just feel like it was the same thing person after person. And for me, like my ideal client is a female team lead, because they're somebody that's looking to grow. They constantly need to be finding new agents. They, they have so much value. So when I create, like when they come over and work with me, they're constantly around new agents, right?
Yeah.
Because there's people that are coming to my events, and people come to me all the time like, hey, I'm getting into real estate, or hey, I just got my license, or hey, I don't like my brokerage. And so for me to be able to say, then you need to meet this team lead or that team lead or this mentor, like my value proposition is to a lot of builders too, which is super awesome. Because those are, they're all growth minded, and I don't know, I just feel like those are who my people are for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like you've also figured out your avatar. Like these are the people that I'm going to go after. And so it's women, obviously. I'm going to go on a limb there. So
I have guys.
If
women. Josh ever listens to this, I'm like, I have this guy on my in my group, Josh Hogan, and I call him a leader on my group because he's so fantastic. He teaches all the time. He comes to my all girls events, and he loves it. I'm like, okay, like totally, we can go have a beer, whatever. Like, I don't want you to feel like I'm only for women, but it's like my voice is to women.
Yeah. Like, and that's who you're focused, and that's okay. Obviously, like there's clearly going to be other people that will be interested in what you do, but at least hey, this is kind of my core audience, and obviously there's going to be other people that will be interested in it. And it's so funny because it's funny that you say that. Like I realized, I don't know how long ago it was, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that for whatever reason, I just realized, okay, the people that I hire that stay on the longest, that are just easy to work with, they get crap done, I don't have to babysit them, I don't have to hold their hand, when you work with me, you have to understand there's going to be a level of you need to figure it out, because I'm not going to babysit. I'm not going to tell you what to do. And so it's funny because I realized the avatar for employees was middle-aged women with kids. Like, because moms know how to multitask. They know how to get crap done, and
we do get stuff done.
Like, and you don't have a choice. Like when you have a kid, you just have to figure it out. There's no manual. Like you have to then figure it out, which is kind of like a job in that, okay, there's not going to be a perfect manual, especially with me. I'm not going to give you a manual. I'm not that organized. Yeah. Right? So I need someone that's okay with a little bit of chaos and being like, okay, I need to figure this out. And the ones that have, like, I have an assistant, Lori, who's been with me now, I think for 6 years or 5 years or something like that. And I could not live without her. Like she is 100% the brains of the operation. She's the one behind the scenes doing all of the heavy lifting. And it's just, but it took me a while to be like, oh, like it's not, I don't need to go after these young kids, that are just getting out of college or whatever. Like that was kind of my sweet spot where I was like, yeah, those just, they fit for what I need, I guess.
Yeah, I totally get that. You do. You almost, because I mean, when you're in real estate, you kind of feel like, well, anybody that's breathing is a client for me, And so then you have to be like, okay, yes, but you need to hone in and figure out your avatar. And that was hard for me too, because I didn't want people like a Josh to miss out on someone like Josh, because I was talking about these female team leads. But I'm like, you know what? It ends up working out because I try really hard to be all over the place, having conversations with people. And when people talk to me, they know like, okay, I can work with her even if I'm not a female team lead,
Yeah. Curious, in your situation, because you have 2 kids, both of you are working. Were there ever times that you guys struggled in your marriage where you were like, man, how are we going to make this work? Because I really want my career to, take off. And obviously he's got a career. Did you ever have any growing pains there trying to figure it out? Or did it just kind of naturally work out and just...
Oh, tons of growing pains. So my husband's so supportive of my business, and he loves watching me in building mode. But I will tell you, one of my biggest struggles is sometimes I pour into so many people outside of my house that when I get home, I'm really exhausted, or I have so much to do that they get me when I have a short fuse or whatever. So it's constantly something I'm trying to work on, to where, because it's hard. I want to drop my kids off at school every day. I want to pick them up. So I have this allocated time to do my business. And there's so much that I do that it's really been like my thing over the last 6 months has been systems and processes, which has seriously helped me so much. There's some systems I'm willing to share that have been like a game changer for me, so that when I am home, I'm not like, oh my gosh, I need to be doing this. And I also do have an assistant now, which helps me a ton too. It's my sister. My poor sister. I say poor sister. She loves it.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so I feel like that is more of a struggle for me, is definitely like trying to balance my home life. I know balance isn't actually obtainable, but at least trying to make sure that I'm not pouring into everybody else and not my kids and my husband.
See, I would love to, learn, maybe go a little bit deeper on that.
Yep.
Like, what are some things that you have found for you that has made it possible so that, you work in that specific time frame and then you have time for your kids and you're present? And I'm super curious to learn more about that.
So I'm huge on time blocking. Everything I do, I try to put on my Google Calendar, and I'll put it within those hours. And so even if I have an event, like I have to plan, like this is time where I'm doing like my inviting, I'm doing like whatever prep work before that event gets put in my calendar. My appointments, like when I'm asking people when do they want to meet, I already have allocated appointment times that I try to stick to, so that I'm like, perfect, can you meet at 9 o'clock or 1 o'clock? Like I'm giving them the options instead of them being like, oh, can you talk at 4 o'clock tomorrow? And I'm like, no, yes, I can, but I don't want to. Like I'm trying really hard to keep it within those hours. So my Google Calendar is my life. I also use my Google Calendar as a CRM. I feel like people might cringe when they hear that, but I am not a CRM person, and I've tried and tried and tried for 8 years, and I'm just like tried every single one, and I feel like the only thing I use KV Core for, which is like $700 a month, is their text feature. And the only reason I use it is because EXP gives it to us. But I use like all of my notes when I have an appointment with somebody. Every note about our conversation, everything goes in there. My follow-up goes on my Google Calendar. My receipt from our coffee appointment for my taxes goes in there. I mean, I literally have everything in there. So that has been something that's helped me. I'm not organized either, but now I am, because I stopped saying I'm not organized and I say I'm not naturally organized, because I know that about myself. I'm a DI on the disc profile. So the SC, it's literally not even existent on my disc profile. So I was like, I've got to change this. The other thing that has been a game changer for me is Trello. If you've never used Trello, it's like an organizing board system. So I can do everything in there. And it keeps me on task with my events, with my prospecting, with literally my snapshot of 2023 for Connect and Cultivate. Everything's in one organized board. And then the biggest thing, I swear I'll die on talking about this, is Flowdesk.
I've never heard of Flowdesk.
It's an email marketing tool, but it basically has forms for lead capture. So like, let's say I have an event coming up and I'm talking on Instagram about it. Mm-hmm. I can put a link that will go to a form for anyone that's interested. My goal with Instagram is to get everyone off of Instagram and into my email database, right? So I will be talking about it. I'll have a link, and when they say they're interested, all of a sudden a series of emails pop off to them, right? So then all of a sudden they're in my database, and then I'm nurturing them for specifically what I'm talking about. And then also I do like all of my newsletters and everything through there as well. So for me, this helps me with the before, during, and after process with pretty much everything in my business. If it's from events to onboarding a new agent to my podcast, everything. So it just helps the overall experience when people are working with me, more than just the one face-to-face or second, whatever it is. It's more than just that face-to-face time. Wow. Yeah.
For anyone
Lori
that listens,
needs to learn that.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, and this, you were asking me before the show, like what's my goal with the podcast? And it's that right there.
Yeah.
Like there were so many gold nuggets. And for anyone that listens to Ed Milet, do you listen to Ed Milet?
I need to. His name keeps coming up to
me.
Me.
He's like one of the big podcaster guys. He's great. I like his podcast, but it's so funny. It's always in my head. He's always like, okay, everyone rewind. You need to listen to that 30-second clip. Like, this is going to go around the world. This is going to share to everyone millions of times. And that's always in my head. He says it, I swear, every show. Like, someone will say something like that, and it's like, okay, that's gold.
Yes.
Go back, listen to that, rewind. Because there's so many things to learn from that. You're probably the first person that I've met that can actually manage, everything without a CRM and pretty much just use Google Calendar. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's literally the best thing ever.
Okay.
And think about this, for anyone that uses Google, if you use Google Sheets, Google Docs, and Google Calendar, if I met with Kelly Jones and I met with her and I'm trying to figure out all the things about Kelly Jones, I can write in Kelly, and then every appointment I've ever had with her comes up, every single document, any Excel spreadsheets I have, like, so all of a sudden I have like all this stuff on Kelly Jones. Why do I need a CRM system? And if I have Flowdesk too, now I know KV Core, I'm not prospecting for buyers and sellers. So
No.
I'm not looking for something that's going to be able to track what properties they're looking at, all that kind of stuff. I understand that. But for my specific business, I don't need something that extensive when I have Flowdesk for $19 a month.
See, and that's really good to hear, because I am right there with you. I have tried every CRM. We spent in the last couple of years on Salesforce. We went all in on Salesforce, and I think we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on Salesforce. And it's painful for me to even admit this. We don't use it. And so we ended up going to Monday, which was just was easier for our team and what we needed. And I'm not saying there's a perfect CRM out there, because everyone's different, but that's awesome that you figured out what works for you and then just built around it. And that's
you have to stop listening to everybody. It's like everybody will be like, you have to have this, you have to have this. So for 8 years, I tried to make sure that worked, and it just didn't. So I'm like, you know what? This works for me, so I'm going to pour my energy into this, because otherwise I'm not doing that, and I'm half-assed doing this. So if I just put all my energy into that, then it works.
So cool. Okay. Love all of this. So I'm going to ask 3 questions that we like to end the show with. And I actually wrote these down. Last time I didn't do it, my wife was telling me, she's like, yeah, your podcasts are good, but you don't really know how to end it really well. You're not very good.
It's
So I'm
hard.
like, okay, I'm going to work on that. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to ask everyone the same 3 questions for the most part. We'll see how it goes. But you're the first one that gets these questions. So there was no preparation at all.
Okay.
I'm going to put you on the spot, but they're
on the spot.
pretty easy. What is your favorite podcast or book that you've read lately, or podcast that you're really into these days?
This is so hard. I feel like I am somebody that will start you should see my book list, and you should see how many books I haven't finished.
That's so funny. There's like some statistic, like no one finishes books unless it's a story.
I know.
Because we have to finish, our brains have to finish a story, right?
Like I love books like that. But no, for work, I feel like right now I'm actually very into it. It's the cash flow quadrant. And I love it. So this year, 2023 is my year. I have major money mindset issues.
Yeah.
And so I am going to put myself around as much like conversations around money. That's why I started the Girl Invest in Yourself retreat, was because I know a bunch of people who are really great with money. And so I put them in a room, had them teach at a retreat. And it was like the best thing ever. This book was actually recommended to me, and I'm just like mind blown. It's
Is it
so
Robert
good.
Kiyosaki? Is it one of his books? Yeah.
It's so good.
It's so good.
And
he's awesome.
What's really good too is my husband's W-2. So I feel like he and I have different like ways of looking at life. And I feel like that book really, to me, I told him, I'm like, you got to pick this book up and read it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it really helped me understand your perspective. And I think it'll help you understand mine.
Yes.
And hopefully be more on the same page with stuff.
Yeah, that it is. It's a mindset shift if you're W-2 versus 1099. Profit First, have you ever heard of that book?
Mm-mm.
Okay. That's another one that might work well with that.
Okay.
And they have one just specifically for real estate investors as well. That's really cool. So they're very similar. I think it was actually based off of that cash flow quadrant book. So anyways, love that. Cool. What was your biggest growth year, would you say? And this could be for anything, personal, business, whatever. But was there a year where you're like, okay, like that year I grew a ton. It was hard, but whatever. Like I learned a ton.
Yeah, I feel like every year is such a growth year, but I will tell you one of my hardest growth years was the year of 2020 when we closed Revelation down, because I was super upset and devastated because I felt like this culture I had really like fostered and grown was getting, it was like getting ripped apart. And so, I felt like I was getting broken up with for 6 months because these people I'd worked really hard to recruit and retain and became friends with, if it wasn't a good fit for them to move to EXP and they went somewhere else, I had to learn not to take it personally and learn what it's like when people, which I've known, like, when you are in the recruiting or growing position, any broker owner, any team lead, anyone building a business, there is always going to be people that leave. But it was on such a massive scale because we had 906 agents and I think 350 came over with Chuck and Angela. And so it was on such a massive scale that my lesson I learned was just like really how to deal with that and how to just push through, even though you had a lot of chatter in the industry talking about how stupid we were and how it was like, it was like Titanic sinking, and you hear everyone talking bad about your friends, and people had no clue what they were talking about. And so really just like going through that experience was a huge growth experience for me, because I don't like when people talk negative. I'm more of like I want to be friends with everyone type of person. So it was really hard for me, but I feel like it really helped me grow and understand how to react to those situations. And also, if people do leave me, it's okay. I don't need to sit and act like it's the end of the world. I don't need to be petty. I don't need to talk crap to them or anything like that. I need to come from a place of grace and understanding and asking questions. And if it's the best thing for them in their business, then it's okay. And guess what? There's still possibility to work together down the road. And now there's lots of possibilities to work with me because I've opened up those opportunities. So it's not like it's goodbye forever.
So good. I think what I have tried more than anything, and I'm not perfect at it by any means, is not burning bridges.
Yes.
And realizing that work is not everything, right? Like it's just a piece of life, and it doesn't have to be everything. And sometimes if we make it everything, then your life is probably messed up. Like you got to figure out, you got to get some priorities in line, because work really shouldn't be the focal center point. And I've been guilty of that, but I do think it's so important, and it's hard as a recruiter, I'm sure, to see people leave and not take it personal, but being able to like stay friends, say, look, like, because you just never know,
Yeah.
Like I always tell people that are like, hey, screw you, I'm burn that bridge, talk crap, say all these things. I'm like, that is going to come back.
It does. I watch it. Yeah,
yes.
I've watched it tons of times in our industry happen where I'm like, man, if you would have handled that different,
Yeah, you really can still be friends and cordial. So, no, I love that. Those are some awesome lessons learned. So, Kay, last question. So what is the best piece of advice that you would give yourself, let's say 10 years ago? Looking back, like now that you've learned all these lessons on what to do, what not to do, like what is something that you would tell yourself 10 years ago?
I would probably, I've kind of always been somebody who just does what I want and don't care what people think, but I feel like there was a point, around then where I was pretty like, okay, I was more of a people pleaser for a while, because I was in the recruiting position and tiptoeing around so people wouldn't leave, I feel like. And so what I would tell myself when I was going through that would definitely be like, not to be a people pleaser, and to be firm in your beliefs and feel good about what you're talking about. And if you have to have hard conversations, have them. And if you truly do care about somebody, those hard conversations are part of a relationship. So don't be afraid to have them. And I feel like that's my advice.
It's so funny. I was listening to someone the other day, I think it was on Instagram or something, but it was this billionaire guy, and he was like, looking back on my life, he's like 60 or 70. And I don't know if I've shared this on the show or I don't know. But anyways, he was like, look, when you're 20, you care what people think. It's all about that. But he's like, I would still, go out and try a bunch of stuff, figure out what you're good at. But when you're 20, you care about what people think. When you're 30, you care less about what people think, and you kind of get in your groove and in your rhythm. When you're 40, you stop caring really what people think about you. And then he said, when you hit 50, you realize no one cared about you in the first place.
I know. How self-centered are we?
No one cares about you,
Nobody.
right? We all care about ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's not, and anytime I worry, like, oh man, should I have said that? I wonder what they're thinking. Or, well, I'm like, they forgot about it the minute I said it.
Totally.
Or they weren't even probably listening, in the first place. And so, anyways, and I have picked up on that. I just turned 40, and I'm definitely getting to that point where I'm like, I just don't care.
I know.
I just don't, this is what works for me, and that's okay. So,
I arrived at 40 early, I think. And it's because my husband's 43 and I'm 36. And I'm like, I always keep telling everyone I'm 40. I'm like, I'm not 40. I need to stay in my 30s.
Yeah, I was telling my wife last night, I'm like, I'm preparing you because she's 5 years younger than me. I'm like, I'll just tell you what to expect. On each year, I'll say, this is what, because she's like, I'm 35, I'm tired all the time. I'm like, yeah, that's about when it hit me. It was about 35.
I know.
And then it just gets worse. So
I'm ready
it's
for
okay.
my third coffee right now. It's pathetic.
Yeah, seriously, it's bad. I'm with you. I'm the monster guy. Awesome. Well, I really did enjoy this. I guess the last question is, I know you got a lot of events and things going on. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram. Hey, Kristen Cantrell is probably the best way.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and I know your audience is people interested in investing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I do have an investment workshop coming up. I'll totally have you come. It's going to be fun. It's investing hacks, and I'm doing it at a beer barn. It's called Beer Barn in Epicenter. So
Awesome.
yeah, I'll have to make sure to
At
get you
Epicenter,
the
I haven't.
I love Epicenter.
Yeah,
I
it's like right by my house, and I don't think I've been to it yet. Yeah, I'm in any of them.
Plug for Epicenter. It's legit.
Yeah,
It's so legit.
that guy is so awesome.
He is, and he's literally everywhere I go, he's there.
Really?
Yes, he's always I work out at Pichetto all the time, and he's in there every day too. I went to my friend's bar studio the other day. He was in there with his wife. I was getting my hair done. His wife was getting. I'm like, you're so cute. You're everywhere.
Seriously.
Yeah.
What's his name again?
Joe.
Yeah. So
Joe Johnson.
Yeah, Joe has so for those of you that are not from Arizona, but he's a Gilbert guy that has everything he touches turns to gold. He had a bunch of land. He was a farmer, turned it to Agritopia subdivision. Then he did the Epicenter, which is it's commercial on the bottom, living above, which is East Coast vibe, right? Bringing it to the West, and of course everything he does just turns out phenomenal.
Yeah, follow him on Instagram. He's the cutest old guy ever.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good to know. I didn't even know he was on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Good to know. Cool. Kristen, this was so much fun. Thank you for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.